My husband, Thomas, and I, Clara, were blindsided by a tragedy. Thomas was diagnosed with a rare aggressive illness. It was terrifying and expensive. Thomas was the founder and owner of a highly successful software development company, Vertex Dynamics. His illness immediately threw our lives and the company's future into chaos. We were emotionally devastated, but immediately our support system rallied around us. Leading the charge were Aunt Carol and Cousin Ben. Carol was Thomas's mother's sister, a woman known for her kind, if overly dramatic, nature. Ben was a newly minted lawyer, fresh out of law school, who offered his legal services pro bono, framing it as a family duty. They were indispensable. Carol managed our household, organized Thomas's endless medical appointments, and was a comforting shoulder for me. Ben stepped into Vertex Dynamics, taking over Thomas's legal and financial administration, claiming he was protecting the company from predators, while Thomas was incapacitated. We felt immensely grateful for their help. They were our rock. The first few months were a blur of hospitals and paperwork. Carol handled the mounting medical bills, assuring me she was negotiating discounts and setting up payment plans. Ben restructured Vertex Dynamics' finances, insisting he was shielding Thomas's assets from being depleted by healthcare costs. "It's about preserving Thomas's legacy, Clara," Ben told me, his face grave and earnest. "We need to ensure his sacrifices are not wiped out by greedy doctors. I'm putting everything in trust and setting up separate accounts for maximum protection." I signed every document Ben put in front of me without reading it closely. Why would I read it? Ben was family and he was a lawyer. He was supposed to be saving us. I thanked him constantly, believing he was sacrificing his own career launch to help us. The subtle shifts began 6 months into Thomas's illness. Thomas, heavily medicated and weak, started making odd comments about the company. "Did Ben say why he needs access to the international accounts?" he mumbled one afternoon. "That's strange. Those accounts are empty." I reassured him that Ben was just securing everything, but the question lodged in my mind. Around the same time, Carol started acting proprietary about our home and finances. She changed the locks, citing security concerns, due to Thomas's high profile, and insisted on managing the household expenses strictly in cash. If I asked her about a specific bill or payment, she would sigh dramatically and say, "Don't you worry your pretty head, Clara. I'm handling the messy details. Focus on Thomas." They were constantly together, too, having long, private meetings in Ben's makeshift office in our study. When I walked in, they would stop talking immediately, claiming they were discussing complex legal jargon I wouldn't understand. The feeling intensified when Carol began subtly criticizing my competence. She implied I was too emotional and overwhelmed to make sound decisions. "Thank goodness Ben and I are here," she told Thomas one day, right in front of me. "Clara is a sweetheart, but she's not built for financial crisis." My suspicion crystallized a few weeks later. I was searching for an old family photograph in the study and inadvertently opened Ben's legal briefcase, which he had left unlocked. Inside, I didn't see Vertex Dynamics paperwork. I saw a stack of bank statements from an account I had never seen before, a joint account in the names of Carol and Ben. The numbers on the statements were staggering. Over the last 6 months, hundreds of thousands of dollars had been moved into that account. The money wasn't Thomas's medical fund. It was their personal, shared fund. My mind reeled. This wasn't a mistake. This was a conspiracy. They weren't protecting Thomas's money. They were systematically draining it. The entire support system was a carefully woven web of lies designed to steal everything we built. I quickly took photos of the bank statements with my phone and replaced the briefcase exactly as I found it. I had to maintain the illusion of trust while I secretly investigated the extent of their betrayal. I needed professional help. I couldn't trust any of Thomas's former contacts, as they might be connected to Ben's current legal maneuvering. I reached out to an old college friend, Sarah, who was now a forensic accountant, explaining the situation vaguely, saying I needed an audit of complex family trusts. Sarah's initial findings confirmed my worst fears. Ben hadn't set up trusts to protect Thomas. He had created a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts, legally transferring Vertex Dynamics' core assets out of Thomas's name. The documents I had blindly signed were not protection papers. They were authorizations for Thomas to cede control of the company and its primary funds to a complex web of entities controlled by Ben. The joint account I saw was just the tip of the iceberg, the main conduit for the stolen funds. Carol's role was crucial. She managed the household and kept me emotionally dependent, ensuring I never looked at the paperwork Ben provided. Her dramatic compassion was a tool of distraction. The realization was heartbreaking. The people who slept under our roof, ate our food, and offered comforting hugs were meticulous, cold-blooded thieves, exploiting Thomas's illness and my grief. They were not my support system. They were predators using family duty as their camouflage. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly collecting evidence. Copies of the fraudulent deeds Ben had me sign, recordings of Carol's evasive answers about money, and Sarah's detailed audit trail proving the systematic draining of the Vertex Dynamics accounts. The biggest bombshell was the final document Ben was preparing, a transfer of the title of our house to a holding company he controlled. He was waiting for Thomas's condition to worsen before making his final move to steal our home. I had to confront them, but I couldn't do it alone, and I couldn't risk a direct argument that would send them fleeing with the remaining funds. I needed to trap them. I chose a Friday night. I told Carol and Ben that Thomas was having a difficult night, and the doctor had given him a grim prognosis. I cried and told them I was too distraught to look at any paperwork, so I was leaving it all to them, signing one last stack of Ben's documents. "I need you two to handle everything now," I told them, my voice heavy with faked grief. "I trust you implicitly. Thank you for protecting us." They exchanged a quick, knowing look of pure greed and satisfaction. They believed I had completely collapsed, handing them total victory. I signed the documents, which were, of course, the final paperwork transferring our house to Ben's holding company. I pretended to leave the house to visit a friend, but instead I doubled back and hid in Thomas's unused guest wing waiting. I had arranged for Sarah, the forensic accountant, and 2 police detectives, whom I trusted through a friend's connection, to be waiting at the end of our street. They would move in when I gave the signal. I listened as Carol and Ben gathered in the study. I could hear their voices, no longer strained with comforting concern, but loud and joyful. They were celebrating their success. I walked into the study, holding the hidden camera I had set up earlier. Carol and Ben were clinking glasses of Thomas's expensive whiskey. They looked startled but recovered quickly. "Clara, darling, what are you doing back?" Carol asked, her smile too wide. "I thought you went to rest." "I came back for this," I said, holding up the hidden camera that was already recording. "I wanted to hear the true cost of your help." I pointed to the documents on the desk, the house transfer papers. "You pretended to help, but you were just after my husband's money. All of it. The company, the accounts, and now our home." Ben immediately stood up, looking enraged. "Clara, you are distraught. You don't understand legal complexities. That's just a protective measure." "A protective measure for you, Ben," I countered, pulling out the bank statements of their secret joint account and the documents confirming the shell companies. "I know about your joint account. I know you transferred hundreds of thousands of dollars from Vertex Dynamics. I know Carol was just your emotional distraction while you destroyed Thomas's company." Carol's face crumpled, not with remorse, but with pure, panicked fury. "You little fool. You think you know everything. I saved you from your own incompetence. Thomas trusted me more than you." The confessions tumbled out of them, driven by their panic. Carol screamed that Thomas's money was her right, because she deserved the comfort his mother never gave her. Ben raged that he, the lawyer, was smarter than the sweetheart who signed everything he put in front of her. "We knew Thomas wouldn't last," Ben screamed, pointing to the house papers. "And you, Clara, were too busy crying to notice you handed us the keys to everything. We were your support system, you idiot. We had to do all the work." I held up my phone and pressed a button. The live recording of their confession, broadcast to the detectives outside, was now complete. "Actually, Ben," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, "you didn't do all the work. I had some help too." I signaled the detectives. The front door burst open, and the two officers, along with Sarah, the forensic accountant, walked into the study, their badges visible. Carol shrieked, backing into a corner. Ben froze, staring at the sight of the law and the forensic proof of his meticulous fraud. He realized that the documents I signed earlier were just bait, and the final piece of evidence was their own recorded confession. The sight of the police was a profound relief, but the betrayal was deeper than I could have imagined. The people who were supposed to be helping us were actually meticulous, heartless predators. The police immediately read them their rights. Ben, the brilliant lawyer, could only stammer in disbelief as Sarah walked over to the desk and methodically gathered all his fraudulent documents, sealing them in evidence bags. "She knew," Carol whispered, staring at me with pure venom. "She played us." "You taught me everything I know about playing a role, Carol," I replied, feeling a cold rush of power. "You just chose the wrong person to underestimate." The immediate aftermath was surreal. Carol and Ben were arrested right there in the study, their expensive clothes a shocking contrast to the handcuffs. The detectives assured me that the evidence, including the recorded confession, was overwhelming. I walked back to Thomas's bedside. He was asleep, oblivious to the immense financial and emotional war that had just been won on his behalf. I looked at his frail form and knew I had made the right choice to fight in secret. I realized that the heartbreaking realization wasn't just about the money. It was about the destruction of our entire sense of security. I had to rebuild everything from scratch, knowing that the most comforting hands had been the most dangerous. The following weeks were dedicated to undoing Ben's legal knot of deception. Sarah, the forensic accountant, was a lifesaver, systematically tracking and freezing the assets Ben had moved into his shell companies. The entire extended family was stunned. They couldn't believe kind Carol and brilliant Ben were capable of such calculated malice. The truth was that their reputation for kindness and brilliance was the very cover they used for their sophisticated theft. I had to tell Thomas about the betrayal gently. When he finally understood, his initial reaction was not anger, but a profound, heartbroken sadness that his own family had preyed on him in his weakest moment. I went public with the story, focusing not on the scandal, but on the theme of vulnerability and the need for vigilance. The shocking truth we uncovered was a warning to anyone facing severe illness or financial stress. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, share your story of how you fought back. Comment below and tell me how you rebuilt your trust. I detailed Carol's emotional manipulation and Ben's legal fraud, ensuring the narrative was controlled by facts and evidence, not rumor. The legal process was swift. Ben's own recorded confession and Sarah's documented audit trail were devastating. They both faced significant jail time and were forced to pay full restitution, though recovering all the money would take years. The most satisfying part was seeing Ben's perfect legal career end before it truly began, destroyed by his own greed. And Carol, the great matriarch, was publicly exposed as a fraud and a predator. I never desired their ruin. I only desired the return of Thomas's assets and our peace. Their ruin was a consequence of their own destructive choices. With Ben's legal control gone, I stepped in as the acting CEO of Vertex Dynamics. I wasn't a software developer, but I was honest, meticulous, and intensely dedicated to Thomas's legacy. I found a new, honest legal and financial team to clean up the mess. The company was stronger for the challenge, stripped of the corrupt elements Ben had introduced. I realized that the biggest gift Carol and Ben gave me was the realization of my own strength. I was forced to become the ruthless, vigilant financial manager they mocked, and I was brilliant at it. Thomas's health slowly stabilized. He was still ill, but the stress of the company's impending collapse was gone. He looked at me with immense gratitude and love. "You saved me twice, Clara," he told me, weakly squeezing my hand. "Once from the illness, and once from the people I trusted." Our relationship, tested by illness and betrayal, was stronger than ever, built on a foundation of absolute truth and shared vigilance. The final court order confirmed the transfer of all Vertex Dynamics assets back to Thomas's name and the title of our house back to us. The systematic plan to steal everything was thwarted, and the legal mess was resolved. I kept the recording of their confession locked away, a reminder that the people who seem the kindest can harbor the deepest, darkest intentions. The tragic reality was that our support system was the conspiracy, but the triumph was that we recognized it and fought back with strategic precision. I returned to the study, the scene of the confrontation, and removed Ben's makeshift desk and filing cabinets. I replaced them with a comfortable armchair and a small bookshelf. The room was no longer an office of conspiracy. It was a sanctuary of peace. I realized that their betrayal had given me a profound strength, forcing me to learn finance, law, and corporate strategy in a compressed, terrifying time frame. I was no longer the sweetheart who couldn't handle complexity. I was the fierce, strategic guardian of my husband's legacy. I used my new public platform to advocate for stricter legal protections for individuals facing severe illness, sharing my story not for pity, but to warn others about the dangers of predatory family members disguised as helpers. I helped Sarah, the forensic accountant, launch a specialized service dedicated to auditing family trusts and estates during times of crisis. We turned the pain into a force for good. The memory of the betrayal faded, replaced by the profound relief of having won the biggest, most crucial fight of our lives. The shocking truth we uncovered wasn't just about money. It was about the heartbreaking realization that our entire support system was a carefully woven web of lies designed to steal everything we built, including our sense of security. But we rebuilt that security on a foundation of facts, evidence, and our unbreakable trust in each other. The house, the company, and our future were safe. I sat by Thomas's side, reading him a book. The fear was gone. The thieves were gone. I had been betrayed by my support system, but I had gained an unbreakable sense of self-reliance. The people who pretended to help were truly after my husband's money, but they underestimated the fierce, strategic love of a wife determined to fight for her family.